So the topic is many loves of women, and we were discussing that below, and we couldn't figure out what we're going to say about the many loves of women. So we're actually like Vijeta came up with something interesting, and that's what we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about love as a playground and love as a battlefield, and how most Indian lovers oscillate between these two extremes, and or juggle one to get to the other. And the idea for this panel, of course, originated with an article that Arundhati wrote for Deccan Herald, right? I hope all of you all have done your homework and read it and come. So it was about her polyamorous life and how she doesn't believe in the mantra of one life, one love. And she said polyamory for her is the practice of nurturing various relationships of love, with or without sexual intimacies, with the consent of all involved. They can be short-term or long-term, with or without a primary partner, sometimes creating alternative circles of family. And that's another point that Dhamini will also talk about later, these alternative circles of family. And Arundhati used a Bengali word for polyamory that best describes polyamory to her, which in English is translated to many desires. I can't pronounce the Bengali word, but she'll tell you the word. And will you summarize some of the key points in your article to start with, since not many people are looking like they've read it?
Thanks, Priya. Yeah, so I wanted to begin with saying you talked about the playground and the battlefield. So, khel and khatre ke beech mein. But you know, sometimes it's even difficult to say whether it's the same place and when does one become the other. And I think that makes it love even so much more interesting when the play becomes a battle and one battle becomes play. Yes, Bohu Monorath is the Bengali word that I had used. And I feel there were 4 key things that I wanted to deal with. One was actually to dispel some myths about polyamorous folks like me that people think. One is that we sleep with everybody. We don't. We choose.
This gent is laughing very loudly over there.
The second is that we love everybody. We don't. Though we try, we don't. And there is consent, and not to think of consent makes the polyamorous person and the sex worker both in the same pool of societal discrimination, that you think because of our practice or because of our profession that we cannot have consent. So first was about actually dispelling some of these myths with stories and things I've heard from my other polyamorous friends. The second part, which was very important, was how this question of jealousy and how jealousy plays such a key, very few people talk about it, but it's such a key ingredient. It's almost like that invisible ingredient that comes into all kinds of relationships. Between parents and children, between siblings, between partners, it's there, and yet nobody will talk about it. And suddenly everyone will ask the polyamorous person, ki tumko nahi hota jealousy? So it was really interesting for me to kind of talk about
and we feel jealousy from school, yeah? When we're 3 girls and 2 are spending more time with each other, the third friend is like,
imagine
you know what's going on.
Finding another friend, like it's killer. You can't sleep at night. And they are polyamorous people, right? So I talked about a concept called compulsion that I came across. It's beautiful. It's a feeling of joy when somebody else finds joy or happiness or pleasure in what you also love. Now it's easy to understand if it's a poem or the ocean, but it's tougher to understand if it's a person, right? Because we are also conditioned into some ways of being and how to let all that go. The third and fourth thing were really some of the challenges, some of the struggles loneliness.
So basically, if your partner gets comes back and tells you, I had this amazing orgasm with another partner, like my best ever, you're supposed to feel happy about it.
Well,
I mean, I'm being flippant, I know.
No, you're not being
But,
flippant.
you know, but I mean,
Not at all
like,
being flippant.
as a fiercely jealous person, I ask this question.
As a person who has been trying to practice unconditioning myself from jealousy, you either form accepted norms of sharing between partners.
Right.
What can you deal with and what can't you deal with?
Yeah.
So, if you don't want to know about sexual intimacy, because see, that's a concept with another person also involved, right?
Absolutely.
Does that person want you to tell me that you had this orgasm with that person? Is something those two people will also have to figure out.
Right.
So that's nice actually, because a lot of responsibility is shared. It's not just hum tum aur hamare do type.
Yeah.
Na? So there is a third corner to that table which always comes into play, which makes it even more interesting, because now responsibility is no longer binary. We keep saying non-binary for many things. We say spectrum. In love, I see this as a non-binary spectrum thing where it's not just you and me. It's a larger collective that will have to agree. So the third and fourth thing were really struggles of loneliness, of dealing with fights, dealing with differences, dealing with shifts in relationships, and ultimately then how do you live with all of this? So that's more or less the summary of it. And if two people in a polyamorous relationship, and they have to be very brave to do this, decide that with the consent of other people involved, they're going to share everything, including fantastic orgasms, then they will have to really learn to place themselves in a manner, in a detached manner, where they can actually look at the person and say, wow, I have seen that. I am still a student as far as my own practice goes, but I have seen that happen. So I think it's possible.
Any famous couple you admire, like from history and from in the way they sorry. Oh God. Any famous woman you admire who navigated her life in a way that
There are many, but I don't want to just specify one person. But I will say this much, that a book written very early in the 70s, Ethical Slut, and the many examples of this new kind of families, imaginations that people were trying to live with, really influenced me.
One last question before we move on. You know, from all the accounts of my girlfriends, Indian men are so bad even at monoamory. How do they navigate polyamory?
Don't underestimate Indian men. You will stop clapping when I finish this. They will guard wanting to have extramarital affairs under the garb of polyamory. They will actually want to just sleep around sometimes. And it is so much easier to just say that. But this whole, that's why I feel in a system that's so patriarchal, even in polyamory, women have to be super careful. Because you're constantly getting, you're not necessarily getting the truth. So polyamory is not about a person just losing interest in one partner, or just wanting to sleep around. All those, I'm not even judging them. They have their own place, and between two consenting adults, who am I to say anything? But don't garb it under polyamory. Polyamory, there are two words. Yeah, poly is just one of them.
Right.
Amory is a very strong word. It means love. So I don't think men. I think it's like just taking away responsibility from them to say that, अरे उनसे तो एक नहीं होता, इतने कैसे करेंगे? They've been known for polygamous, families from forever. It's just that abhi they'll have to deal with their partner being polyamorous. That is the trick that is really throwing them off. It is not. If you tell them that they can handle polyamory as long as it's only them. So yeah.
That's true. I run this Instagram project called India Love Project, and in that we feature interfaith, intercaste, and LGBTQAI couples. And in that, one of the things that we've learned is that the biggest challenge and the biggest sort of obstacle young lovers face is their parents. How did you navigate your parents?
कुरुक्षेत्र लगाओगे आप you know, my parents themselves had an intercaste marriage. Okay, my dad comes from a very low caste refugee family, etc. So they were thrown out of their house, and one would think that when they themselves have gone through such difficulties, they would be more understanding. Na? Ki life ki experiences, they will learn something. They didn't. And when it came to their own daughter, they had the same worries, the same prejudices, the same issues, the same fears. And my dad is there, no longer there, but with my mom, and she calls my partner's friends, she understands, she discusses it with me, but she lives in great fear and worry that I don't have one standard, like one person permanent forever. While the person she lived with has left her 10 years back and has gone. Huh? What security she had, I don't know. Right. But she still worries that I don't have that one person. So yeah, it's
that name you write on a form.
Yeah.
The name you write on a form.
Yeah.
What about you, Vijeta? You want to talk about parental battles or parental conversations?
Yeah, because every time I watch film, because love came to me from films. I'm a very old-fashioned person. Songs, films, etc., etc. And every time there was a song where there are people falling in love, or there are films where people falling in love. Even before Bollywood raised the question, I think I was raising the question, where are their parents? Because because the idea of love was like a big battlefield at home. The day my mother found out that I had a guy who I used to say hi to in school, no one had dinner in my house. And now if I go and tell them that leave the boys alone, now there are many other women, I don't know what they'll do. So it seems like I first had to get my parents ready for the idea that I could fall in love. So I did. But then by the time I could convince them that this is okay, I was out of love. And they were ready for love. So it feels like every time I do one battle and come and say that and tell them that, listen, this is okay and he is fine and this can happen. And my mother says, no, this can't happen, love marriage, no one in our family has this, we should get an arranged marriage. He was a gym instructor, so her reasoning was, if someone invents a pill where people will stop putting on weight, what will you eat? So yeah, no, basically she was like, get some science, boy. That's why I think that's some nonsense.
Legitimate concern.
So before, I had to think about things like gym and science and pills before I could figure out how to bring him home. But when she was ready to finally receive him home, I said tata bye-bye to him. And then she was like, what happened? I thought this was happening, and then that's also not happening. What do you want to do? I said, I don't want to get married. She was not ready for that. So it feels like every time I solve something in my head and I irritate my mother that for 5 years you have to also become like me, blah, blah, blah. And then she finally agrees. I have climbed some other train and she's waiting for me at the station, waiting for the train to come, and no one is coming. It happened again and again and again, and I think now she's given up on me. But
that's a good state, actually.
It is beautiful.
When parents give up, it's brilliant.
It's the best. But sometimes I feel like this some sweet liberation that I feel from having. So it's like this: if my parents ever find out that I was on a panel like this, they'll think they don't know who I am, and blah blah blah.
As I whispered to you earlier, my father-in-law's family friend is in the audience. So.
It's very difficult for me to maintain two versions. One is a version that gets to be in a classroom with students and talk to them about love and marriage and romance and desire and sex. And when I park my two-wheeler at home and go up, I have already become another version who doesn't talk to my parents about any of these things. So when I look at that concept where I have to be someone else at home and then come back home to become someone else, I'm already tired. I'm so tired that I don't think I have any space in my body for either poly or mono. So, so there's that. Yeah, it is. It's also hard work to make sure that this version doesn't affect that version, and that version doesn't affect this version. So I think Beach Mein, this is where my love is dying and blossoming, between maintaining one face at home and maintaining another one outside. At one point, however, I'd like to sort of sit them down and talk to them and all of that, but I come from a family where there's no vocabulary to have these conversations. There's no language for, I don't know, what will I tell my mother that I like women now? I don't know how. She had I told you, no one had dinner at home and they were all angry with me when I told them I say hi to boys. Now if I tell them what all I do with women, I don't know where they'll go. So it's like a very scary problem, and that's where I am at the moment. I'm not looking at them. I'm not looking at any of the any kind of any theories or narratives on love. I think Beach Mein there's a song, so I'm just listening to songs.
Which is your current favorite song?
It's a Kannada song called from this film called Ulidavaru Kandante. I think I'll give you the title in a while. I've forgotten.
But what's the meaning? Like, what's the song saying?
It's a song about a girl smiling and the boy dying. Which is my favorite. Yeah.
So love is playground and love is battlefield. So one story to illustrate love as playground. I mean, when you talk about love, we rarely talk about desire. That's another thing that's always sort of under-discussed in India. And I found it very amusing to read that this hospitality firm, Oyo, said that its bookings rose 35% on Valentine's Day, despite it being a weekday. And Vrindavan clocked the maximum number of bookings with a 231% increase over the previous year. And Bangalore came next with a 51% increase. And to illustrate love as battleground, I don't even know if there's any love in this story, but just battleground. When a Gujarati bride fainted during her wedding, she was rushed to the hospital and she died. The family decided to go ahead with the wedding anyway and married the dead woman's younger sister to the same man. They kept the sister's body in cold storage until the ceremony is over. Dhamini, I'm sure, has many more stories about love as battleground.
Yeah, very cheery ones, just like that. So I actually wanted to tell the story of a lesbian couple that is one of the petitioners seeking, challenging, sorry, closer? Okay. Thank you. So Kajal and Bhavna are in their early 20s. I first met them in 2018 when they were on the run from their families. Bhavna belongs to Haryana, Kajal belongs to Punjab. And Kajal is lower caste. Bhavna is dominant caste. And also has political, Bhavna's family has political mileage in the place where they stay in Haryana. And so it started off as a very sweet story of how they met in a cousin's wedding and, Aakhe mili across the room, quite literally. And, I think also for a lot of queer women, where anyways the way that you move, what spaces you can occupy, I mean, for women specifically, but also for particularly queer women, where desire itself is so invisibilized and you can't really talk about it. And I think queer coding is something that I'm sure a lot of queer people in the room will automatically know what I'm talking about, right? So it took very little time for the two of them to figure out that they want to be together. But I think the battle that they have had to face is actually the families. And it has really been like incessant, right? From 2018 till now 2023. But what I want to actually emphasize, and I mean, we can talk about like some of the things that have happened to Bhavna, the fact that they had to run away, then they were caught back, then they were, had to run away again. Then they sought police protection. The Delhi High Court granted them police protection. They had to stay in a shelter home. But you can't live in a shelter home for too long, so then they had to find a rented home. And then Bhavna's parents reached the rented home and accused Kajal of being a drug peddler. I mean, so, there are multiple chapters to this. But what I want to emphasize is that what the two of them have done is that they have now joined a batch of there are 17 petitions, but many, many more petitioners before the Supreme Court right now, challenging different marriage acts of the Indian, the foreign marriage, the Special Marriage Act, the Hindu Marriage Act, right? And Kajal and Bhavna have one of the petitions. So what is interesting about love as a battlefield and as a playground, I think is that, and I think Arundhati will make this distinction, and it's a very important distinction, is that when we think about love, we cannot, or I somehow can't seem to separate the politics from love, right? It is a very, very political act. I remember in 2013 when the Supreme Court brought back Section 377, recriminalized homosexuality. I was talking to Menaka Guruswamy, who's a Supreme Court advocate now, at that time, and in a slightly different context, she had said a line that still resonates, I think, very much. She said that, Dhamini, actually, we are always in a perpetual battle for the heart of this country. And I think that is a really fantastic line, and we see that happening over and over again, right? So, yes, so that is my wonderful cheery, with a slightly cheery end, and they're still together, which is an even better thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
So you said they met at a wedding.
Yeah.
So, in India Love Project, I love keeping track of where people meet, and in fact, I just got a story where this couple met during the lockdown while playing badminton, because the neighborhood would gather together to play badminton. But couples have met as lab partners over the dissection table, as opponents across a TT table. They may sign up for the same trek or even meet by chance when his dog jumps on her. They could have met as rival radio jockeys. These are all real stories. I'm not making them up. In one case, a Muslim woman and a Hindu man met when he dialed the wrong number. And then they just started chatting. I received a story where, the badminton, I told you about that. And school, college, workplaces, they're much more sort of equal arenas to meet, and then you have to go back to the family battleground, after falling in love. You have to face that reality. But Arundhati, what was the response to your article? I'd love to know what people...
So varied responses, lots of responses. I was quite overwhelmed actually. While I agreed and did the article, the day it came out, I woke up with a deep sense of anxiety. Because I have been writing about polyamory for a long time on social media, but being in a newspaper like this with a photo, and with stories, of course I had talked to everybody concerned whose stories or that I was sharing. But I still woke up with this anxiety. And also felt that this shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't feel so much anxiety. If a monoamorous person had written about love, would they wake up with this? They wouldn't. So one extreme reaction is basically abusive. All kinds of abuse that you get in your others folder in your direct messages, right? And sometimes on WhatsApp, because now we are parts of groups with hundreds of people and you don't know all of them. And somebody's posted it, or you have posted something, and then there is... So abuse is at one end, but the more positive ones is so many women actually reach out, want to talk, want to share. And I have been a sort of a listening board for the last couple of weeks after the article. It seems everybody is in love with someone else. That's another thing I figured. And I don't say it flippantly.
All those who are in love with someone else, please raise your hands.
And I don't say it flippantly because the way it was shared with me
Yeah.
was as a struggle.
Of course.
You know, I'm either in a long-term relationship or marriage with somebody. I deeply love the person. And I have felt ashamed for loving someone else. And not just heterosexual love, but love across the spectrum. I have had a best friend who I thought was a best friend, but one chance and we felt really attracted and we shared a kiss. And since then, I've not been able to forget that. And I've stopped seeing that person or treating that person as my best friend. What do I do? But reading your article, I felt this is possible. So all kinds of really fragile, beautiful stories. And I just feel so fortunate, so lucky, so overwhelmed actually that complete strangers can trust somebody who's just written an article and talk.
No, but I think that was because of the tone of your article and what you shared, you know, so they feel comfortable sharing with you because you shared so much with them. And like, as you said, you know, they don't have anyone else to talk to because everyone around them is judging them for their choices or their feelings or...
I think shame is what I felt mostly, that huge amounts of shame in loving outside the box that I was meant to love in. And I actually felt that this is what probably when I was growing up and there were no words for being queer or being homosexual or being outside anything non-heteronormative, there was no word. And we just did our little khuspus and, you know, like, oh, that person is different and wo alag sa hai, or call them by some pejorative term. And I actually lived through all of that. The amount of shame that we put on other people just because they love differently. Different from what we feel. But I was also filled with, and I must share this, with a lot of sorrow for the people who sent abuses. Because I think that abuse came from deep insecurity. Love scares people. Because love makes you do crazy things. Because love makes you irrational. It makes you take decisions that the whole world will tell you is wrong for you and not good for you. And you give in. Love is magnetic. So you are afraid of it because you can't submit. And when you can't submit, you do chatpat chatpat like one bird in one cage. And the first person who says it, you lash out against the person. The abuse was not to me. I feel most of it. I think it was trying to deal with their fear. And unfortunately, we don't go through any process of how to work out fears and insecurities. We are not taught that. We are just taught anger.
So why? I mean, like, love... Indians get so angry about love, all kinds of love. You know, I mean, you said one reason could be fear. But it's more like, for example, I was chatting with this gentleman who runs an organization in Chennai who tracks honor killings. And he told me about this case of a father who basically ordered his daughter to be murdered because she ran away with someone from a different caste. And he asked her, he asked the man, you know, the man was in jail, and he went to him and met him, and he said, is caste more important to you than your daughter? And he said that man replied, caste is more important than God. You know, so, but why, maybe Vijeta can give us some gyan, since you're the educator, on why we get so angry and why Indians are so angry and fearful of love? And Dhamini, I would love to hear your take too.
I don't know why Indians are angry. But I can tell you what happens in my mind sometimes when I think about being in polyamorous relationships with other parties, men or women. I find that I'm even though I'm not, or if I am, I find that I have to project that I feel threatened by Savarna women. So if a partner that I choose is in a relationship with a Savarna woman, I feel like I must be immediately on guard. And I'm not able to figure out why, even though I have nothing to feel threatened about. And I think at this point, whether from polyamorous or monogamous, monoamorous relationships, I think my only demand from myself is that I learn to let go and I learn to trust and things like that. But if you've taken a look at the history of how Dalit women have confronted love and marriage and relationships, it's not necessarily a relationship of trust. I don't know how to trust. I'm not saying it because I'm carrying the big history burden of my country on me. I'm not carrying any such burden. Simply because I'm not sure what's there next. What's after that? If I start, if trust is the route to letting go and finally feeling like I can let go and be in love, I'm not sure how to do that. And I think this is something that holds me back, and this is something that makes me angry sometimes. See, because I think love is like that big giant wheel, and if you've ever been to like a exhibition or a mela or whatever, you see that big giant wheel, and you're standing there thinking, I want to get on that. Why not? Love is like a playground. It doesn't have to be a battlefield for me. So I badly want to play. I've bought the ticket, but I feel like because of this anxiety of caste, I feel like I have to pull myself back constantly and watch out, even though all I want to do is just let go and play. I don't want to think about caste. I don't want to think about getting hurt. I don't want to think about anything. But I feel like there'll be a consequence if I forget caste for a while. And I'm very afraid of what that consequence will do. So it's like a background voice in my head all the time, which I have to sometimes shut up, which I have to sometimes shut. I remember when Me Too was happening and writer Nisha Susan's article came out, she noticed that a lot of Dalit women were very unhappy with the way the Me Too movement was taking its shape online. And she made an interesting point, and she said, Dalit women are not stupid to not join a movement that they know is good for all women. But we haven't given them enough trust to make them feel like this is something that they too can be a part of. So when everyone is joining the fun, it's not like we are stupid to stand here on the other side saying, hey, I'm suspicious of this. We also want to join. I also want to jump and say, let go and whatever, and celebration and all of that. But I don't know what to do with this very real fear of the consequence. This is one of the reasons why I think caste and anger become a big problem for me. On the other hand, I'm thinking also of, when we talk about love, the one story that I really love talking about is the story of Jabya in Nagaraj Manjule's film Fundry, where it seems like only he has access to the love he feels, and he doesn't have anywhere to put it. And that made me think about all the Dalit boys that I know and don't know. And as much as I've read and understood about Dalit women and their relationship with history and love, it seems like they really get the worst of it. But sometimes I wonder where boys like Jabya will figure in this. They're the most lonely. They're the loneliest in this whole game. Because I think for boys to talk about love as it is a big taboo. But for Dalit boys to express love and desire at a time when things are happening, family has to run, blah, 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 that's even more of a struggle. And that's something that I've been thinking about. I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question, but...
No, you made very interesting points.
That was so, yeah. So, I mean, to answer, why are Indian families angry? Why are Indians angry?
What do you have against love?
I mean, I can tell you why I'm angry. So, okay, I think that again, I can go back to the petitions. As you can see, what my reading list has entailed over the past week. I've been reading a lot of these petitions. And actually, you know, some of these petitions are a compendium of nothing but sheer anger against people for just wanting to live with somebody that they choose. And see, I mean, at one level, yes, we can say it's ridiculous, but one understands also where this is coming from. I think Vijeta has made such a great point, and I think even what you were referring to about caste being more important than God, I think it's very telling, because even in some of the stories of the petitioners, some of them are anonymous. I mean, the kind of violence that is written, and I think what is also interesting is that it is, when you read a petition, the legalese, and I'm sure there are many lawyers, so, people will know here better than me, but there is a way of also sanitizing, right, this kind of anger, and to put it down as a very matter-of-fact way. And I think also, as reporters, we are also sort of conditioned to say, okay, we'll, our feelings we can put it down, and let's just sort of look at what is the fact, right, quote unquote. And then what you end up doing with the fact is you're presenting really horrid, violent actions of people in this extremely sort of, ye hua hai, right? And so I think the petitions also are a compendium of that. That's one thing I wanted to mention. I think, I don't know if it's necessarily, I think that we are agents, or we are as much agents of these power structures, even as we are survivors and victims of it. So, like when you were talking about your parents, I was very struck by that they will also, and I'm not, but why should we assume that people will not, right, carry their own prejudices? And so maybe one way to perhaps answer this is really to just ask ourselves, why are we angry? Like, what is making me angry, about this? And we have to go to the uncomfortable spaces. We have to go to the irrational. We have to talk about jealousy, and we have to talk about things which I don't, again, think that politically correct depictions necessarily allow us to do. So, and I don't know where is the space to do that. Like, journalistic writing for sure does not permit me the space to talk about jealousy and, irrational desires for sure. So, but where is the space to do that? And so, therefore, the other, how we construct the other, is very significant. My favorite. Yeah, really. So that's, yeah.
What do you think of this, Arundhati? About the space to express oneself.
Yeah, I think, no, I don't think, I feel. I feel that there are, this kind of an expression happens for me in very immediate circles as well. It happens everywhere. I mean, the space is not going to be ready and present itself.
I'm not able to hear you. Just a little louder.
This? Yeah?
Perfect.
Huh? Thank you. Yeah. I think, this space, I don't think it's going to be like, for example, I didn't think Deccan Herald will be the newspaper to ask me to do a piece on polyamory.
Oh, they asked for it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Barkha wrote to me saying, we have a new Saturday section. I have seen your posts on Facebook. Do you want to do a 2,000-word piece on polyamory? I checked to see Deccan Herald. That's my prejudice. But, and I told Barkha, we had a long conversation that this cannot be sensational. I will not share names of people who don't give me permission. I will not say yes to everything. Even the images used, we work together on. That no, this is not the image to use, this is not how we are going to. So it was a whole project to do this together. And hats off to her and her team. That this space came out. I thought the only place to write would be my Facebook page. And so I think places come from all kinds of strange like, the kindness of strangers type of thing, that most unexpected place, say, it would come. And this story came out and Ravi called me saying, why don't we do this panel? So this is where I'm meeting two of you for the first time. And like from the time we started chatting downstairs, we haven't stopped talking to each other. This is a space. So yeah, aisa hi hoga. And then we'll keep talking, writing and meeting each other and making some cacophony. So that's what I think of space. I mean, koi dene wala nahi hai. So like, we'll just make.
Vijeta runs a blog. So is that a space where you talk about?
I've read some of it. It's brilliant. Please say the name of your blog so everybody else can also.
It's called Ram Lola Ram. And again, it's a space that is able to still run because my parents don't know about it. I think I have to, even as a 35-year-old woman, I have to constantly run two worlds at a time. A space where I can run these things and a space where I pretend that I'm just at work all the time and not having a social life, etc. I think the form of the personal essay for me has been very liberating to then write things and then go practice it. So it's a little ulta. Meaning, I find that now if I want things to happen, I'll first write about them. And then because I've written about them, I have to do them. As some kind of mad journalistic / personal essay ethic going on and off in my head. But I think the country now has to...
I do that sometimes too. With my weekly column, I got to come up with an idea every week. So then I write something and then I think, okay, now I better... But sorry, go ahead.
So I think that our country, now has to sort of open its arm to the idea of the essay as journalism. It also makes lots of people authors of their own stories, which is the best part about it. That I don't necessarily have to wait for someone to come and ask me what the story of my life is, if I can run it on my own and put it somewhere. The other side to it is also what the idea of writing has done to the idea of love in my world, which is that I think for me, love began out of writing and discovering women on the internet, discovering other writers from other parts of the world, etc., etc. So there are always three kinds of loves I'm always rotating between. One is the love that there is in the classroom between the students and me. And I think that's the most encouraging form of love because they are there for attendance and I'm there for my job. It's easy, it's reliable, it doesn't exist on conditions outside of those, and I don't have to take care of that. The college takes care of it, so the duty is not on me. So I have fun with that. The other kind of love is the love I accidentally discover with women through their writing. Over the pandemic, I discovered this long dead writer called Dawn Powell, who wrote in New York in the 1940s and 50s. And I've never felt love like that because, I don't know, love for a dead person, love for a dead white woman. Sitting in Basangudi, I'm just falling in love with this dead white woman. And I don't know where it came from. I just remember reading her short stories in the night and waking up with just her in my mind in the morning. And that's the other kind of love that I'm really excited about. For sending love to all these dead white women sitting in God knows where. The other kind of love is the more traditional kind, but which has to unfortunately be kept under wraps. Before the panel, Arundhati, no, I think it was you, Priya pointed out to a very strange truth, which is that all these people we really love and admire on the internet, they never tell us who they are doing or who they are seeing in their real lives. I badly want to know all these women I follow on the Instagram or Twitter. What is their love life like? I really want to know, what do you fight about? What do you talk about in the night, etc.
I want to know about Dhamini's love life, but she's not sharing anything.
So that got me thinking about how much of it do I talk about, and I don't. And that's for all the reasons I've been telling you from the start of this panel. But I think in between these three loves, I have learned how to sort of not rely on any of these, and that in itself has become like a polyamory of its own. Where I don't. But I'll tell you why the thought of polyamory worked for me immediately, because I was a very anxious and jealous and insecure person, and I thought this is something that I'll never ever try. But then I tried it, and I can't believe how much it freed me, because this was suddenly not my burden to ask somebody, where are you, what are you doing, blah, 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 when I have spent the evening with somebody and come. It's not my burden now. It just felt amazing that I don't have to live in the world where these were worries that I had to be compounded by. I grew up in Jain College, if you know where it is in Bangalore, and love there was a weekend trip to Nandi Hills, and then girls constantly worried that the boyfriends were not calling them back and changing their names to don't call in the morning because they were very upset. So from there to here, it seems like a huge journey. And I'm just very happy to be here in a place where I don't have to keep those late night activities anymore, where I have to call someone and wait for their call. I'm just tired. I can't do all of that anymore. But this Don Powell thing, I think I can do, which is why I feel like it's a nice place to be.
That's brilliant. Dhamini, should we discuss alternative circles of family, which Arundhati also spoke about in her piece?
Yeah, no, actually, that's great. Anything that doesn't make me want to talk about my... So, it's interesting because I think there's a friend of mine who lives in Delhi who's been a feminist, queer, trans feminist. And in fact, she even has a problem with the word family. And because she feels it's sort of, so heteronormative. And so coming with that sort of disclaimer, I don't know what I believe in, huh? So I'm just basically, I'm telling you what the avant-garde...
Something you have to tell us about yourself before we finish.
I'm Libra rising. So I think that one of the things that I can actually talk to you about, and it's going to be a little like random.
Random is good.
Random is good, okay. So, I actually have a friend who I have known for the past 10 years, okay? And she's queer. And we have interacted only via emails. Like literally only via mails, all right? We've met 3 times till last December when I landed at her house and said, I'm staying in Bangalore and I need to stay in your house. That's it. I've actually only interacted with her over email. And I cannot but say that she is family. Like, she is my queer family, right? When I was in Delhi, I was living with my former partner and their former partner, who bought a house together, but of course they couldn't. So one of them bought and then the other had to, the things that queer women do to manage their finances, right? And it was a chosen family of mine. And to this day, even though I may not be in that relationship, that house is very much something that I regard as a home. And I don't know how to explain this, because it is actually not that strange. It's actually quite normal. And sometimes I feel that when we think about property and we think about owning houses and couples, taking joint loans, and yes, of course, we must all have. But do you need to be in a kind of a coupledom to do that? Like, why isn't it already possible for us to choose who we want to own a property with? It's just, and these are not things that now we're sitting and we're talking about it, and perhaps it's got nothing to do with love, and perhaps it has everything to do with love, I don't know. But one of the reasons I feel that, and I keep coming back to the marriage petitions, because what is being challenged right now is that it's not just about saying, hey, like, recognize us, we also want to be couples. No, it's actually saying, look, we need to have access to actually just, like, be people who can love. Like, it's literally just that, right? Who can love, who can choose, who can break up, get divorced, choose again, or not even want to get into this ginget of divorce, breakup, whatever, but like keep expanding our families, right? Whether we want to call it a family or not. And how do we stay in that space having the material benefits of security which we require, right? How can we ensure that we allow the space to accommodate and incorporate more people who do not have access to these spaces? I mean, again, this is so simple, it doesn't even bear repeating, right? But it does, unfortunately. I have no recollection of the question you asked me.
Alternate families.
Families, yes. So I think that I'm very fortunate because I have multiple families like this, right? And I keep joking, and it's actually kind of true. I feel like I'm post-queer. I think post-pandemic, I'm post-everything. So, and like Vijeta has fallen in love with Don Powell, I have fallen in love with somebody I will not even name, who is also a dead author. So, you know, I mean, it's
now
trashy.
You're not going to name a dead author also?
Yeah, trashy, very trashy. Too trashy, but so good. You guys can meet me later. Get the name from me. I think so primarily, I think the idea of love, to be very honest, I think is really about questioning what are these assumptions that we have about love. And if we can actually just break those assumptions, and it's not just because you're queer, you won't have assumptions, of course you will. So to keep breaking assumptions of love, and then you automatically see things that come very normally to us and we want to do, and then, you know, then fight for it. That's it. So.
And we'll let Arundhati have the last word on family, alternate circles of family.
You know, it's great when you can start from scratch. Like if you start at zero, everything is an addition. So since my parents did this thing about this whole East Bengal, West Bengal, refugee, upper caste, lower caste thing, both their families threw them out. So I started at ground zero, no family. So no idea of what family means actually, and no siblings. So bus parents, that's all that family unit is. So from the time I was a child, I knew that I want people around me. You know, I want to go to other people's houses and stay, and like, because when you're a child and during summer holiday, everybody goes to Mama Badi and somebody's house, etc. There are cousins who you can play with. So I knew that, so I'm on a clean slate. So I have to create this world. And I started collecting my world and realized that actually this is great in a way because I can choose. Many of my friends can't choose their cousins, but I can choose, right? And then I realized that even choice is not such a big thing because, you know, choice may be gadbad ho sakta hai. So then that's what you realize, that between this choice and what is given, is choice always a better thing? Then you start questioning that also. But and later when I realized and accepted that I'm polyamorous, I realized that and I'm just saying again, placeholder, the family word is just a placeholder. Like you said, there are so many reasons it has caste implications, it has so many other kinship, etc. implications. It is just being used as X, let's say, as a close unit of people who will love you, care for you, and be there to get your back if you so need it. Let's just say that is the thing that we're talking about. I think one of my learnings has been to never sort of full stop things and keep putting commas or semicolons kind of thing. So earlier relationships, earlier friendships, and see them as transformations so that it stays in that gamut of people who care. They may care differently today than they did earlier, but they're all places of trust. So I think sometimes more than love, I think I will say these are trust bases that one creates around oneself. Even if love is dwindling, if trust is strong, then that's okay. That's what I would call that placeholder, alternative family.
That's nice. So apparently there's time for questions, but we're going to turn things around, and I'm going to ask y'all at least the brave ones amongst you all, to share anything about love or a story, an anecdote. And I can see the gent in the first row who's laughed the loudest. We'll start with you, maybe. Anything you want to share about, if you want Arundhati to listen to a story of yours, or you want to give us some gyan about love, something. Anyone? Who's going to go first? Excellent, a woman.
Hi, good evening. I'm so happy to see you all, and it's refreshing. I think the purple dress, insecurity, jealousy, and something else you said. I don't feel that way, but I'm still a polyam. I feel there's a lot of love, and everyone deserves to be loved. Everyone deserves to be appreciated. I lost my family a long time ago, so I have been an orphan for 18 years now. I think it comes from a place where I lack it, so I want to give it to everyone. This is the way I look at it. So, polyam is new, and of course, I have to, come back to the thing that, it's not always sexual. So I'll really, rethink about it. But thank you. So, and I'm so proud of you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I'll just tell you all the names of the panelists again. I'm Priya, Vijeta, Dhamini, and Arundhati.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. There's a hand up.
Hi, my name is Basit. I'm a polyamory community organizer in Bangalore. There is a polyam community in Bangalore called the Bangalore Polycules, part of it. I just wanted to share a small something about polyamory that I've experienced. Oftentimes, there is a lot of joy, as well as, I'll just sit down and talk because I'm more comfortable that way. It's just like battlefield and playground. I just wanted to bring two extremes that can happen in polyamory in my personal life that has happened. It is like immensely happy, and it's an immense feeling of joy when you have two relationships and you realize that you're being loved by more than one person. There is a lot of joy and happiness in that. But at the same time, you can also have two breakups at the same time, which I had one day. I can tell you that is one of the worst feelings you can have ever.
Both the breakups happened on the same day?
Yeah.
Wow.
A little bit of context. I was in a long-term relationship with someone and just started liking someone and started going out with them. And I told my existing old partner about being in a relationship with this new person, and they said, okay, I think I can't take this anymore, and we have to stop the relationship. And the new person said, I can't be in the way of your old relationship, so I think I have to remove myself. So that's how you end up with two breakups in a day. Just wanted to share something small about polyamory.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Subhadra. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think this is a space which is so important to also validate at some point, because, sometimes we're not I know that I'm in a relationship which is, maybe there are questions. We are still in a society which is, all the time judging you, questioning you. But it's such an amazing platform because we could hear all of you, and it's such a reassurance. So thank you so much. And at the same time, I also think that, I really, really like the whole concept when you talked about family, because, this whole concept of a family, parents, your partner, all the time you're, at the spotlight and people are judging you. So I think we really need to talk about these issues, and we really need to come together. And I'm so happy to know about, there is a platform like that. So thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
I would just like to add, Arundhati, I'm Subbalakshmi. I follow you very closely on Facebook. when I read your article, I thought that I should just pass it on to the different WhatsApp group that I'm a part of. I shared it on Facebook. And I was judged for sharing it, And so I can imagine how, when you said that you woke up with anxiety, I can totally understand it, because I was just forwarding an article and I got a comment from a male friend that, well, looks like you're very excited about this. So you see, and it was very judgmental, the tone. And so I feel that if I could get a comment, I could get these kind of comments just for forwarding an article, it wasn't definitely easy for you. But it is so amazing that all of you, whatever you spoke about the family, about love, and I'm shocked that really, we look at love in such a narrow, judgmental way. And if there's one thing I'm carrying from this talk, it's just this, that, if someone's loving in a different way, we need to really, accept it and understand it. And I'm so grateful because I teach high school students, and I think this is something that I can really carry to my classroom. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. No.
No, I wanted to segue into asking Dhamini a question.
Sure. Dhamini, all questions can be directed at Dhamini. Sure, go ahead. I was just going to open the room for a few questions. But no lectures, please, only specific questions.
Dhamini, firstly, thank you for this talk. My question is, you mentioned that there are so many petitions, right? So my question is, what's the road ahead for these petitions? One, is it going to be a people's movement, or is it just going to be through the courts of law? Where is the influencing factor? Because clearly society needs a paradigm shift. So is there hope at the end of the road? That's my question to you, considering you referred to the petitions. Yeah?
That's a really great question, and I think that that's in fact a question that's in the minds of literally everybody who is aware of what is going on, including perhaps even the detractors. Actually, certainly in the minds of the detractors. So I think it will take the course that any legal, it's before the Supreme Court now. I think there are more petitions that are in the process of being, as far as I know, they have to be notified, of course. And the Chief Justice is going to be the one sitting on this. I don't know if he's going to constitute a bench or he will hear it alone. So all of that it's all legal process. And once the hearings begin, then the hearings begin. There are multiple petitioners on both sides. The Union of India has already responded to the Delhi government, where some of these petitions had gone, and now has gone to the Supreme Court. So you see, so we already know what the central government stand is. And there will be detractors who will come in and sort of argue that, same-sex marriage should not be allowed. Particularly because, there are multiple acts being challenged. So this is not at some level, yes, we are having this discourse, but once in the court of law, it's a very sort of it's a very, actually sanitize is not the right word here. I think that there is a specific process that the law follows then, right? Which has its own sort of, and how you argue, what you say, it has to be very, very specific to, what is there in the Constitution, etc. So it becomes automatically narrower. There is no way to, of course, know what is going to happen. One can only hope for a good story at the end of the day. So, as far as I'm concerned, so that is, yeah.
But also, when it comes up, there will be more coverage of the issue and more people talking about it and stuff, right?
Yeah, of course. The interesting thing is that a lot of people have joined this petition to, have joined this legal battle to actually not just, so because it's not, see, in the court of law, it's about marriage and you're challenging the marriage acts. But actually people want to do this because of multiple reasons. Like some petitioners want to adopt. And, like being able to get married and adopt would be just so easy. Exactly. Kajal and Bhavna want to actually just,
be on medical insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kajal and Bhavna it may not be that for them. Actually, they just don't want to be beaten up by, or be followed by their parents anymore, right? So, there are a multitude of reasons. You also asked the question of movement, and I think that's a very astute question. I'm in the process of actually doing some research on the queer movement, particularly in the 80s and 90s, and I don't know how to define movement, actually, because what happened around 377, we can call it a movement, but it coalesced around, again, a very specific act, legal case, right? So what was happened is that the legal cases have already come up. And perhaps one can argue that maybe the movement is so widespread now because it's no longer just about, same-sex identities. Now it's about any kind of non-conforming, sort of identity that seeks to live with consent and with dignity. And so you're just seeking constitutional recognition and constitutional validity. And I think that is actually very powerful. It may seem like there's no movement, but I think that actually the movement is far more sort of widespread because of that. Thank you. There's another question.
Hi, my name is Bhavna. First of all, I want to start by saying that it was beautiful what I watched, heard you guys talk about, and I think it also creates a safe space for everyone else to ask certain kinds of questions which I think people wouldn't prefer asking as such. So what I feel is I've grown up reading about polyamory, I've grown up reading about open relationships, and most of it has sadly either come from the internet or books. I have never, experienced it because a lot of people, even though they are in polyamorous relationships, they don't openly want to talk about it, right? Because they're scared of being judged or so. So I feel like in my generation at least, a lot of people are very mistaken about what polyamory is and what open relationships are. So I actually wanted to ask you what you think about what polyamory is and what open relationships are.
You want to go with Vijeta?
No, I actually don't know myself.
Okay, I think another distinction which we had talked about downstairs when we were chatting, to make the distinction between amory and gamy. Gamy is in the world of marriage. Amory is love, with or without marriage. And the question that you're asking, actually, forget the word polyamory, forget open relationship. Yeah. You just have to figure, or anybody will just have to figure, how do you want to love? Who do you want to love? When do you want to love? How much do you want to love? Where will you put your boundaries? Definitions don't really matter here, because then we go into, oh no, but this is what it is. So even polyamory itself is defined so differently, and that's why I'm very conscious, at least when I write, since most of my own relationships are heterosexual, and I've had very few queer relationships. Most of my experience comes from heteronormative relationships, heterosexual relationships. And therefore, that is something I have to put out there. Because there will be other polyamorous stories from other kind of loves and orientation, right? So even within polyamory, within heterosexual polyamory, the definitions are not the same. So you create the definition you want, but keep it fluid so that you can move around in it and you don't feel boxed with this. So what if tomorrow I just want to love one person and just spend man or woman and spend the rest of my life with just that person? Just because I've written an article in Deccan Herald, will I not be allowed to do it? है ना? तो हो सकता है ना कि कल you feel that okay, enough. I mean, I'm so tired now. I don't want to juggle appointments. All I want to do is just like have this one person I have to call once a week. And maybe that's all I'll want, right? So just to keep it open and fluid, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I think I'm still trying to articulate my question, but when you are conditioned to, and you've seen, growing up, seen or heard and internalized all the quote-unquote normal ways of loving, or what love looks like, when you begin to realize that you love differently, how do you really find conviction in that and know that something's not wrong about you? And I think this last statement is really, I'm really simplifying that complexity. But yeah, I think that's my question. When it's not modeled around you, or people are not talking about it, you're bound to feel that something's off about the way I love. So let me love the normal way, because the normal way also has worked so far, feels good, all of that. So I think my question really is, how do you find that conviction and know that this is my identity? For now, like you said, it can probably change later. But did I confuse? And it's to any of the panelists who might want to answer this question.
Who's going to take this question? No. I mean, I interact with a lot of couples who basically fight their families and fight their friends, and especially right now, interfaith couples, Hindu-Muslim couples. But the source of their conviction, they always describe it as a love that they feel and that they know. You know, I think reading, educating yourself, knowing that this microcosm that you come from is only, I mean, with the world you come from is only a microcosm of the greater world, you know, where people are doing all kinds of loving in all kinds of ways and experimenting and following their hearts in whatever way they think is right. So sometimes one finds inspiration in that. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to go against everyone around you. That's for sure. Conviction has to come from within, but I guess you can educate yourself better to build that conviction. I don't know anyone else.
So, you know, it's such a great question. And I'll tell you why. So, the thing is that we internalize the shame so much, right? That it is very difficult and yet very essential for us to be able to really just get our heads out of our own selves and see, why am I feeling the shame in the first place, right? Now, I think that this great Indian family really needs to be knocked down a little bit, because it is literally the source of creating such narrow expectations. And, you know exactly what the expectations are, caste, we know all of that, but I'm saying that it continues throughout life. There is no stopping.
Violence, terror, I mean,
exactly.
So many things.
Exactly. So the great Indian family is the source for so much of this sense of, oh, but that means, I mean, is my norm, what am I abnormal, I mean, whatever, right? So I think that the conviction actually, and this is really difficult, but I think it's very essential, is that first pivot to say, it's not me, let's look at the system also. Which is not to say don't take responsibility, I'm not saying any of that. But I'm definitely, I mean, you know, but it's not me, it's the system. What is the system I'm living in? Let's look at the system I'm living in. And then you kind of, I think, start from there to just sort of maybe get rid of some of that shame, right?
I'll just add something. I think, yes, like Priya, you said that the conviction comes from self. And you mentioned knocking down the Indian family, and I can't tell you how many plus ones I want to give to that, like break it down. But also, I think it's sometimes very hard to do it alone. So quickly find people who are either like-spirited or who you can trust with this and who won't judge you. Very quickly find that support system. Otherwise, it's very lonely, and because that violence.
That's an important
happen.
point.
The violence will certainly happen. So, and being alone in that corner with that violence is just stupid. So,
I would say therapy also, but finding a good therapist is like finding a good gynecologist in India. Impossible.
So, I was just thinking when you were saying this, that every Hindi movie song that we hear about love is either about the one heteronormative, don't forget it, that's like the basis. Bad values. Yes. Everything is about that finding that singular love and about missing that bus. It's about finding, longing, losing, but everything is about that single love. And the rest of them are about possessing that other person. The first you find it, then you possess it, and that's the end. So anything outside of these two will be abnormal, right? So I think we also have to write other stories. Like queer people have to write queer stories, other people have to write other stories, so that we can populate this also a little bit.
Any other questions? We have time for a last question.
It's not a question, but I just wanted to say to the last question that even when I'm heterosexual, I'm married, I'm a foreigner, and I'm married to an Indian man, even as heterosexual, married, you still question and you still find things that you do not agree with, that you do not want to follow, that you want to do differently, and you also want to find love in a different way and understand that this image of the one that you cling to and that is your all, it's a Bollywood movie, right? And you also expand your definition of that support system, and like you said, of family, of how you get your needs met emotionally, right? So you don't rely on your partner. So it's a conversation and it's a community that includes everyone, because not everyone, again, in my situation, is saying, oh, I fit everything. I fit the mold. I want all the kids and, living with the in-laws and whatnot. So there are people in all spectrums that are asking themselves these questions and are looking for these spaces. And just sharing this space and listening and all just shows how we have so many things in common. Even though I may not be polyamorous, but I understand that redefining things is very important. It is what we are doing now in this time of history. We are redefining a lot of things. So everything seems like it's spinning and spinning and spinning, and you don't know where do I stand? What do I support? Just that.
And I'll give everyone one last love tip before there's one hand up, but can I give my love tip before that? Stop watching Bollywood films and start watching Malayalam films. One last question there.
Hi guys, my name is Shashwat. First of all, thank you obviously for such a wonderful session. I don't have a question, what I have is a request. Dhamini, you were talking about a lot of petitions that are challenging a lot of the acts in the special marriage acts or whatever challenges the ideas we have around family in India, right? So my request is, as a journalist, if you could, maybe create a listicle or which talks about what the implications of these specific challenges are, religion-wise, sexuality-wise, because I think a lot of the critique I see on at least Indian Twitter by queer people who across, mostly on the left side, is that we are mostly, at least what is very mainstream now, is that we are trying to tackle, we're trying to attain the right to marry among same sexes, right? But like you mentioned, there are so many other different facets of this act that are being challenged. So just my request that if you could publish or you could have someone simplify it, amplify it. Because I think when people know that these things are being questioned and what these implications of these questions are, I think that's when a lot of imagination also takes flight.
And the connections, because it's not just about queer people. SMA is something that affects interfaith, intercaste couples as much. And in fact, there's already been challenges and some kind of wins, some legal wins when it comes to protecting intercaste couples, for instance. The Supreme Court has provided for shelter homes for runaway couples. Please come to the Hindustan Times website on 2nd April. I'm on sabbatical till the 1st, so thanks. No, I mean it, really.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming.